Hello, and welcome to Eerieworm, the horror music podcast where we dive deep into the spine-puncturing audio that makes the horror genre so, well, horrifying. I'm your host, Ryan Leo Williams, and today we're about to explore the musical madness behind one of the most grotesque body horror films to hit the big screen this year. No, not Paddington 3, but the blood-soaked, pulse-pounding world of The Substance. So whether you're chasing youth, beauty, or just the next great horror soundtrack, stick with Eerieworm for the best in chilling music breakdowns, eerie soundscapes, and haunting melodies that will keep you coming back for more. Before we start today's episode, I want to make sure you don't miss out on experiencing the music we talk about in all its glory. In the show notes for this episode, you'll find links to the tracks we've discussed, including the haunting score for The Substance. From there, you can immerse yourselves in these tracks and hear firsthand how the music elevates the film's gooey transformations. So let's get into it. So, The Substance is a visceral, grotesque, and truly unforgettable experience. Directed by Coralie Fargeat, who brought us the equally brutal Revenge in 2017, this body horror flick dives headfirst into themes of aging, beauty, and obsession. And let me tell you, it does not hold back. Gore? Check. Blood? Absolutely gallons of the stuff. But there's something else, something that oozes into your experience, and it's the music, composed by the brilliantly twisted mind of Raffertie. In this episode, we'll explore how Raffertie's thumping score, equal parts dissonant and powerful, helps to make The Substance such a kick-ass horror experience. We'll also take a look at the extreme body horror scenes that had audiences fleeing the theatre. Whatever you do though, stay with us at Eerieworm. It's gonna be a wild ride! So what if I told you there's a secret formula for eternal youth? It's not a pill, it's not a serum, it's the like and subscribe buttons right there. Stick with us as we dissect horror music and save you from the decay of boring soundtracks. Before we dive into the music, let's break down a smidgen of the plot whilst trying to avoid spoilers. The Substance tells the story of Elizabeth Sparkle, who's a fading celebrity played by Demi Moore. Now, Elizabeth used to be a household name, but she's now known for a fitness show and a perfectly sculpted image. But now she's turning 50, and in this version of Hollywood, that means one thing: your time is up. Depressed and desperate to recapture her youth, Elizabeth turns to a black market drug known only as The Substance. Now, this isn't just any drug, it literally creates a younger, more attractive version of Elizabeth. A sort of clone, if you will. And the clone's named Sue, and it's played by Margaret Qualley, who does an amazing job. But here's where things take a sharp turn into body horror. At this point in the story, I don't want to give you too many details for risk of spoiling the experience. Suffice to say, things get absolutely cray-cray. But let's move to talking about the man behind the music, Raffertie, whose real name is Benjamin Stefanski. Now, Raffertie is a classically trained composer and first made a name for himself in the electronic music scene, known for his experimental and sometimes chaotic tunes. Over the years, he's shifted to film composition with credits on projects like Zone 414 and the John Wick spin-off series The Continental. Raffertie's score is part electronic, part classical, all unsettling. And for The Substance, he created a score that's haunting and hypnotic, perfectly capturing the film's themes of beauty and decay. From the opening scene, where Elizabeth first contemplates taking the drug, the score plays a pivotal role in setting the tone. It starts pretty subtly with soft electronic pulses, but as the film progresses, so does the music, becoming more and more distorted, more chaotic, and absolutely more terrifying. But the usage of Raffertie's score, it actively participates in the horror. In one of the film's more gruesome scenes, where Elizabeth's body begins to start taking a turn, Raffertie's music mirrors the physical breakdown. The dissonance in the music grows louder, more erratic, mimicking the decay on screen. So let's take a moment to talk about how that works. So sound in horror films often operates in a space between what we see and what we feel. And Raffertie seems to deeply understand this in his score for The Substance, using electronic dissonance, high-pitched tones, and ever-present subwoofer troubling bass to keep us on edge. And when the body horror kicks in on screen, the music follows. distorting alongside Elizabeth's physical form. Let's dig into some specific tracks from the score that really amplify the horror in the substance. The soundtrack, released by Waxwork Records, features standout tracks like Elizabeth Sparkle and the title track itself. Elizabeth Sparkle is the opening track, and it totally introduces us to the film's protagonist with an eerie, quite minimalistic melody. The track starts with hybrid orchestral swells with some subtle swarm-like instrumentation, but as the story progresses into its dark journey, so does the music. Layers of dissonance and uneasy progressions are added, creating a sense of anxiety that foreshadows the horror to come. It's a subtle but brilliant use of music to establish the film's unsettling tone right from the start. Moving on to the title track from the film's soundtrack, it's a manifestation of horror music that amplifies psychological tension through minimalism and electro-pumping dissonance. It opens with a pulsating low-frequency drone and continues with a minimalistic kick pattern. This serves as an unsettling foundation, creating a sense of impending dread. This is followed by continuous, almost mechanical rhythms that mirror the industrial feel of the film's themes. The texture gradually builds as distorted electronic elements are laid in, symbolising the internal breakdown of the film's protagonist as she succumbs to the horrific sides of the drug. The rhythmic pulsation becomes more erratic, reflecting the loss of control and escalating body horror. What makes this soundtrack particularly effective in the context of horror music is its use of negative space. Moments of near silence interspersed with sharp, jarring notes that evoke both physical decay and psychological unravelling. And, of course, we can't talk about the substance without addressing the extreme body horror. Coralie Fargeat doesn't shy away from showing the audience every grotesque detail. Referencing Elizabeth's visceral moments of decay, this film really doesn't hold back. And unsurprisingly, that level of gore had quite an impact on viewers. There have been reports of walkouts at various screenings, particularly during the more intense scenes. Some audience members simply couldn't stomach the combination of visuals and Raffertie's oppressive score. But for those of us who appreciate the artistry of horror, the gore wasn't just there for shock value. It served a narrative purpose, highlighting the destructive obsession with youth and beauty. I also have to mention a particularly gnarly version of a remix of Pump It Up by Endor. And the remix plays during one of the film's more provocative sequences, Sue's unapologetic, exaggerated booty flaunting moment. As the track kicks in, its infectious high-energy beat contrasts sharply with the film's darker tone. This remix embodies the superficial, hypersexualized nature of Sue's transformation, her younger, more desirable version of Elizabeth. The heavy bass and thumping rhythm perfectly mirror Sue's exaggerated movements, almost turning the scene into a grotesque parody of youthful sexual vitality, which, of course, that's what the film critiques. In my mind, the use of this remix serves as an ironic commentary on Hollywood's obsession with beauty, youth, and the commodification of women's bodies. The music enhances the spectacle of Sue's flaunting, making it simultaneously comedic and unsettling. It's a reminder of the dark side of physical perfection and the societal pressures to maintain it. The contrast between the playful, upbeat track and the horror elements of the film underscores the surreal nature of Sue's existence, further highlighting the grotesque costs of chasing eternal youth. This scene, along with its choice of music, creates an unforgettable moment of both satire and horror. So let's step back and take a look at the bigger picture. Why does Raffertie's music work so well in this extreme context? Well, I think it's because horror relies on more than just what we see. It's about what we feel, and music has the unique ability to tap into our deepest fears without us even realizing it. When we watch Elizabeth's body deteriorate, the gore alone is disturbing, but add Raffertie's distorted, chaotic score to the mix, and the horror reaches a new level. The music makes the visuals feel more real, more immediate, and it's as if the sound is decaying along with her body. The dissonance, the relentless repetition, it all mirrors the physical destruction we're witnessing in front of our eyes. Raffertie uses his music to mirror the film's decaying themes, both physically and mentally. His use of minimal electronica in tracks like Activation and Alteration from the soundtrack adds layers of tension to the horror that unfolds on screen. And these moments of intense dissonance are particularly important when Elizabeth, caught in her spiral obsession with youth, faces the consequences of her choices. It's another example of how sound and gore in horror films are symbiotic. One feeds off the other, amplifying the terror to new levels. And of course, it would be remiss of me to not mention the sound design. So one of the things that makes the sound design so stand out in this film is its literal brutal precision. There's a gleeful sharpness to the mix, often hitting the audience in jarring, unexpected ways. When Sue Elizabeth experiences grotesque bodily transformations, the sound follows suit. Flesh tearing, bones cracking, and fluids gushing with a hyper-real delivery. It doesn't shy away from the body horror, instead choosing to amplify it. It's as if the audience is experiencing these changes, and luckily, the sound design often works in tandem with the music, creating moments where sonic textures blend seamlessly with Raffertie's score. In more unsettling moments, there's an overlap between what's traditionally considered music and sound. A blur between the two bedfellows, making the audience question where the music ends and the sound design begins. This brutal approach to sound is what gives The Substance its auditory punch, leaving viewers disturbed not just by what they see, but also by what they hear. Dennis Quaid's character Harvey is seen eating in a grotesque yet crucial moment that brilliantly mixes performance, direction, and sound design to make the audience deeply uncomfortable. In this scene, Quaid fully embraced his sleazy character by reportedly eating over 2 kilos of shrimp, and that was on set to portray the character's disgusting indulgence. This excessive performance was designed to match the film's grotesque, satirical tone. The sound design amplifies every detail of his consumption, the wet slurping sounds of shrimp being sucked, the exaggerated crunching of shells, all which mirror the toxic, decaying world of obsession and greed the film portrays. As we mentioned earlier, the film definitely isn't for everyone, but it was definitely for me. Reports from early screenings told of people walking out during the most graphic scenes, and it's kind of rare that a film in 2024 can still shock viewers to the point of leaving the theatre, but The Substance did exactly that. I personally found the whole experience exhilarating and felt that a new bar had been set in terms of the execution of an intense final product. Also, I found myself punching the air, grinning from ear to ear, loved every second of it. At the Cannes Film Festival, where the film debuted, it received a standing ovation lasting nearly 13 minutes. Now that's a testament to how well the film was received by those who stayed, but it was clear that the extreme body horror paired with Raffertie's unrelenting score just wasn't for everyone. Some critics have been divided in their opinion. Some hailed the film as a masterpiece of modern body horror, praising the fearless direction and Raffertie's ability to turn sound into a weapon. Others found the film too extreme, too grotesque, and almost unwatchable. But isn't that the mark of great horror, right? To kind of push boundaries, to make us confront things we'd rather not. So where does The Substance place Raffertie in the world of horror music composition? Well, I'd argue that it's his most ambitious and terrifying work to date. Raffertie specialises in blending electronic music with raw emotion, but in The Substance he pushes that further. His ability to make music feel physical, to embody the decay and destruction in the film, becomes part of the narrative, making it impossible to separate the sound from the horror. Let's not forget that Raffertie's electronic roots give his music a modern edge, appealing to today's audiences who are more accustomed to synthetic soundscapes. But unlike other composers who rely on grand, over-the-top scores, Raffertie keeps things minimalist and nuanced, which makes the moments when the music does swell all the more impactful. It's a masterclass in sound design and musical storytelling, and this is why music is so vital. It shapes our experience, it plays with our emotions, and when done right, it leaves a mark that lingers long after the credits roll. So I'd love to hear what you think. Did The Substance push your boundaries? How did you find it? Drop your thoughts in the comments, share your reactions, and let's explore how The Substance left its mark on you. And as we wrap up, it's worth remembering, in the pursuit of perfection, sometimes we all lose sight of what truly matters. So if you want to keep chasing the dark side of music and film, keep on listening. So until next time, beware of shortcuts to perfection and keep your ears open. There's always something lurking in the soundscape of horror. Thanks for listening, and may your horror music collection remain as beautiful as your nightmares. Ta-ta!